Hello, hello, hello. Welcome back to What Would Zig Do Gaming. I am your host, Zig, and I am here with Paragon. So, we're going to start a brand new series of videos. I'm going to call this series Zig's Builds. So, every time I post a video of my gameplay, especially with Sevarog or Sereth, I get questions about the builds that I'm using. I mean, obviously, people can go into the video and just look at it, but if people don't want to go and, watch me be really bad at this game and they just want to know what the build that I'm using, I totally understand just asking the question. So I've decided to do a couple videos about some of the builds that I really like with the characters that I'm good with. So we're going to start with one of my favorites. We're going to start with Sereth. Sereth is a really interesting character that is in a bad place in the meta right now because she scales as a carry, but she can't replace a ranged carry. She can't replace any of the other Marauders. It's just not going to happen. She's good, but she's not that good. In addition, she needs the exact right team comp to be able to work for her. So, that's a discussion for another video, but what this means is that you're not going to see her played in the safe lane at all. Now, I've heard people are trying to make a Aurora and Sereth combo work, and I hear mixed stories about how well it works. Personally, I think it might be something that develops here in another month or two, but for right now, we're still stuck with Sereth not being a safe lane carry. So where do you put her? Her best role absolutely is in the jungle. So we're going to go check out my jungle deck. In the jungle, there is Heresy. So the main keys about Sereth in the jungle is that she scales higher in damage than any other jungle because she scales as a carry. So with that in mind, you want to take advantage of all of that power that she's going to be getting. So early game, your very first cards are going to be the Vampiric Elixir and 2 strike tokens. Now this is a strategy that has been pioneered by Blood Mortius, the jungler for Team Carbon EU. If you're not familiar with them, you can go check out any of the Paragon Competitive League or Paragon Challenger Series tournaments. Team Carbon EU is always there, and they're always a top finish. So the reason that we're not starting with a Siphon is the overall idea of a jungler is, or the overall goal of an early game jungle, the initial clear is you have to be at the river buff at 3 minutes, level 3. That's a very particular point. You have to be level 3. And you have to have over 350 to 400 health. With most junglers, this is pretty easy because they can just slap on a Siphon and they'll be good to go. Sereth, on the other hand, you're not going to get the jungle clear that you need and be at the river buff in 3 minutes with a Siphon. She just doesn't have the early game power because she's a carry. She starts lower than everybody. Whereas, Sevarog has a basic attack that starts at like 72 damage, I think. And the other ones start like Grux and Kwong and them start in the 60s. Sereth's initial attack is in the 50s. So, you need these 2 strike tokens to give you the early game clear to get through the jungle the way that you need to. And the Vampiric Elixir here is for the early game sustain. Now, the way to get to level 3 and be at the way to get to level 3 with the opening jungle clear is you have to clear all of the white camps on the strong side jungle. This is assuming a strong side jungle clear. There are strategies to do both sides. I personally have not got to that point. And it usually depends on the spawning positions of the river buffs. Like if black buff is on the left lane, is on the left river buff, for example, you'd want to try to get over to that first because black buff early game means somebody's going to die. But anyway, so for my jungle clear, I don't worry about the left river buff. I'm still not to that point yet. So you need to clear all of the white jungle camps in the strong side jungle. That's the one on the right, the one that contains your jungle buff. You need to clear all those white camps. You need to clear the green camp. And you need to clear the 1 minion respawn on all of the camps. Now I can put up another, I'll probably do a small clear at the end of this video just to show you what I mean. But that's the goal. And with the when you kill that last 1 minion spawn, you'll hit level 3. So that's your early game. From there, once you do that, and then go get your river buff, you go out and you see if you're going to do a gank or not. If you don't gank, or if you do gank, it doesn't matter. Go do your gank, don't do your gank, whatever. Just make sure that you get to 3 card XP by the time that you go back. So if you don't do a gank, go clear out a left side jungle. Even if the off lane took the weak side jungle camp, there will be enough there to between that and the Amber Link to give you 3 CXP at the 4-minute mark. And that's when you pick up your Siphon. I personally use a Magus Siphon. A Magus Siphon, sorry. The reason I do this is because it gives me a little bit more power, and 30 extra mana, you can pop off another ability or 2. Not 2. Definitely not 2. You can pop off another ability, which can be really handy in the early game. You can go with a couple others that would be viable. You could probably get away with Reaper Siphon. I mean, 4% crit and the same amount of power. Not a bad idea. Lord Siphon wouldn't give you any more power, but it'd give you a little bit more sustain. You could go with this one, the Stalker Siphon, but I personally don't think that those stats are worth it. So anyway, so you'll get your Siphon right after your opening game items. From here, it's really a little bit of preference as to the order of things, but here's how I do it. So next what I do is I grab, at the next 3 points, I grab my ward, because I feel that you should absolutely always have a ward. So at 9 CXP, I'm popping on the ward. However, I don't upgrade the ward immediately, because you can see that they're late game upgrades. So the ward, you just grab the ward, and then the next 6 points goes into a Whirling Wand and upgrading that. And the reason I do that is that gives you that early game attack speed. That at that point in the game, attack speed is just as good as power, and putting on an even mix of both is a great idea. So this gives me 3 points of each. Excuse me. I'm sorry, 4 points of each. 4 points of power, 3 points of whirling of attack speed. My God, I can't fucking talk today. So you do that, you'll have a decent amount of attack speed for the early game, and you'll be able to pump out a lot more damage. Now, the last item that you want to get to help with your jungle is going to be this Empty Thunder Cleaver. Now, when I first saw this, I was kind of confused by it as well, and by now the meta has kind of caught up to it, so I'm probably not telling you anything new. But for those of you that are not familiar, or for those of you just starting out, an Empty Thunder Cleaver is great for a character like Sereth, who has decent jungle clear, but needs a little bit faster. Like, she doesn't have the AoE that, say, like Sevarog does, because he can just spam his Siphon, or Kwong, who can use whatever his, I can't remember the name of it, his little AoE, the little AoE burst thing that does ridiculous amounts of damage and lifesteal. So she needs a little bit of help. So you get a Thunder Cleaver, but you don't upgrade it. The reason you're not going to upgrade it, I'll go into that later. But for right now, really what you want it for is the passive on it. The passive here, I can't mouse over, but the passive there is you get a 50% damage increase to your cleave damage. That is incredible. And the reason it works so well is because Sereth scales so well with her power and her basic attack, because she scales as a carry. She has 1.0 power scaling to her basic attack. So every time you put a little bit of power on her, she's getting the full benefit out of that, as opposed to Sevarog, Kwong, Grux, who have 0.6 or 0.7, like typical melee characters. She scales as a carry, so she gets 1.0. So every little bit of power you give her goes directly to her damage, and it's incredible. But she has really low cleave damage, so it makes her jungle clear a little slower. You kind of have to rely on frame canceling into Chastise and making use of Heaven's Fury. This will change that. You'll be able to clear jungle camps in 3 or 4 hits, maybe less if you can get them grouped up correctly. But anyway, so that's a big deal for your jungle clear. So the early game build, going back over it, is you're going to have your Vampiric Elixir and 2 strike tokens, and then you're going to grab your Siphon, and then your ward, your Whirling Wand, upgrade the Whirling Wand, and then into the Thunder Cleaver. This is going to give you incredibly fast jungle clear, and it's going to make you a force to be reckoned with on the battlefield as well, because you've got a lot of power coming out for the early game. Now you don't have like Madstone, like 4 Madstone gem upgrades of power, but you'll still be doing really well. And your primary role as a jungler in this early part of the game is still to be clearing those jungle camps and farming up. So this helps you a lot. This also puts you in a position that if you can get just a little bit of help, if you grab a green or a black buff, you could take the Raptors really quick because of that 50% cleave bonus. You go over there, bring an ally along, preferably the mid lane or maybe your off lane if he's a little tankier, and you just start wailing away, and you'll take them down in no time, especially if you pop your ult. So from there is where the build really starts to come into its own, and that's with this first Spear of the Rift Hunter. You really want to start getting that crit damage online, so that gives you 12%, and then we go into a Rift Magus Scepter for another 8. So that gives you 20% crit at the early game and a lot of power to work with. It makes your damage numbers spike immediately, and it makes for a really good mid-game. From there, the rest of the build is pretty straightforward. We're going to get more power through our Assassin's Ward. I prefer Curse of the Leech to Thirst Fang, but there's no reason that you couldn't put Thirst Fang in and just make up the difference. Just as long as you get that 10% of your lifesteal is really what you're aiming for there. So I just put in power upgrades here. If you use Thirst Fang, you'd obviously put 3, 2, 1 in lifesteal into the Thirst Fang. It would be the exact same payout for the most part. Actually, I think you get a little bit more power this way. From there, you're going to end up... Now, I'm not going to go into like when to sell things, what you're going to sell, because it really depends on your backing. Like I tend to stay out longer than most people, especially as a jungler, because I'm always running around. I need to clear the jungle. I need to go check the lanes, go back to the jungle, because I don't like leaving like 2 or 3 stack camps or higher in my jungle, because the enemy jungler is going to come over and steal the shit. So I can't tell you when to sell what you're going to sell. What I can tell you is that from there, you're going to need to prioritize your Sword of the Altar. That should go online before the rest of your crit items, because that'll take your damage into ludicrous range. And then once you're done with that, you can get your last 2 Spear of the Rift Hunters. So the final build is going to be... Final build will be the Assassin's Ward, this Rift Magus Scepter, these 2 Spear of the Rift Hunters, Curse of the Leech, and Sword of the Altar. You do end up ditching the Thunder Cleaver. Now here's the reason behind that. So these 3 cards will give you 100% crit, and I catch hell every time I say it. But 100% crit. Say it with me now, 100%. Now, a lot of people are going to tell you that that's inefficient, and that you would get more out of doing, some attack speed or more power and stopping your crit in the 70, 80, 90% range. And they are totally correct. I'm not going to argue with that. This part of the build is actually a little bit of preference. Efficiency-wise, you could probably stop the crit at 92 or 96% and still get and still get to the point that I'm about to talk about. But here's why I do 100% crit. And this is another part of the build that came from Blood Mortius, the Team Carbon EU jungler. My build doesn't mirror his exactly, but I use the same basic concepts. So, the 100% crit is because you don't have to rely on RNG. I happen to play a lot of RNG games that are not Paragon. I'm an avid XCOM player, for instance. If you've taken a look around my channel, you notice that there's probably more XCOM content there than any other game, although Paragon's catching up. That game is loaded with RNG. I don't want to have to deal with that in Paragon as well. So, when I'm running around a Seraph, with this build, I know I can put out, I forget the exact number, but it's 500 to 550 with each attack, assuming no extra armor is built. That's the number I want to see every time I swing the mace and every time I use Heaven's Fury. because I ran into an issue just like last week. I don't know if it's one of the games that went up onto YouTube or not, but we were moving in on a kill on somebody, and although we secured it, I would have had the kill if I was at full build and had my 100% crit. Well, as it was, I was only at like 80 or so, and so when I did my Heaven's Fury that I thought was going to kill her, I only did about 160 damage, and that person almost got away. Luckily, one of my teammates was there and took her out. I think it was Decker. Doesn't matter. But that's why I want the 100% crit. I want guaranteed sustained damage, because when I go in, I have a very specific opening. It's basic attack, chastise, basic attack into Heaven's Fury. That's roughly 1,800 to 2,000 damage, give or take. That's going to kill most characters at this point. With the health pools being where they are, if I get a hold of a carry that way, they're done. It's over. I don't want to have to rely on random chance to give me the damage that I need to secure the kill. Because Sereth is not a powerful, or Sereth is not a durable character. I need to get in and get out. I need to go in, do my 4 attacks, and probably ascend out. Like, that's probably how that's going to go. Now, keep in mind, these damage numbers are without orb and without ult. With ult and orb, those damage numbers go, much further up. But again, I don't want to rely on that. That's not like, I want to be able to pop the ult when I know I need it, not rely on that damage to do my basic job, which is get in, gank, get out. So that's the basis behind 100% crit. With this build, I did not personally find room for more attack speed. I originally was using attack speed in this build, and while the attacks came out faster, I honestly believe that I'm getting more out of this because of the way my opening works. It's, the attack, basic attack, frame cancel into chastise, and basic attack again. No amount of attack speed is going to change the timing between those between those 3 attacks. And then you, with Heaven's Fury at the end as the 4th one, again, no amount of attack speed is going to change the speed at which that burst comes out. So either that burst works or I have to leave. So with that in mind, I need more power so that Chastise and Heaven's Fury hit harder. And that's my reasoning behind no attack speed, because there is no attack speed late game in this build. That's why. Which is also why you can get rid of your Thunder Cleaver, because you don't need it. And then from there, the standard numbers of 20%, your 20% lifesteal apply. This build is capable of soloing or Prime. I wouldn't do it before you have... I wouldn't do it before at least finishing off this Spear of the Rift Hunter. So that would give you, 16, 20, 32... If I did my math right, I think that would give you 40% crit and your lifesteal stuff here. Which, if you're working on Spear of the Rift Hunter, you should have Curse of the Leech and Sword of the Altar both online. Excuse me. So I wouldn't do it before that. Honestly, I would wait until you're already putting this on and upgrading it. Because Orb Prime can be a bit of a bitch. And, I mean, people better than me are able to take it much lower with Sereth. It's just the nature of the beast. If you get a good buff, like if you get a black buff and a green buff, run in there and smash your face into it. But that's how I run it. So that is my Sereth build. So again, the final build is going to be the Assassin's Ward. Really, this is kind of a preference thing. You can use whatever ward you feel most comfortable with. I particularly enjoy the Assassin's Ward for the power, the tiny bit of basic pen, and a little bit more lifesteal. But you could easily sub in like a Guardian or Sage Ward. I wouldn't put in the Sorcerer's Ward just because Ability Pen does nothing for her. So anyway, so you're going to do the Assassin's Ward, the Rift Magus Scepter, Spear of the Rift Hunter, Spear of the Rift Hunter, Curse of the Leech, Sword of the Altar. That's going to be your final 6. Now, I hear some of you saying that you would rather play Sereth offlane. I do it occasionally. I don't recommend it because I think that you're going to run into some issues with her being underfarmed, but if you manage to catch up, then it works. So, with that in mind, I still have an offlane deck in the event that something goes wrong and I need to go offlane with her. So, Angel of Mercy, Spirit of Vengeance 2.0. 2.0 is because this is the build that I used whenever we had the Omni Gamer event where everybody was playing Sereth. It's a derivation of that deck. It's actually quite similar to my jungle deck, though. The end game is still going to be the same. Assassin's Ward, Rift Magus Scepter, your 2 Spear of the Rift Hunters, Curse of the Leech, and Sword of the Altar. The only difference is going to be your early game. And really, you can modify this as you see fit. But early game, I do the Healer Token Health Potion start, just because that gives you the most sustain in lane, and she definitely needs it since she's a little squishy. And instead of picking up the Empty Thundercleaver, I threw an Empyrean Mask. It's not a great card, but on the other hand, I mean, it can give you 3 CXP of power, 3 CXP of armor, or 3 CXP of mana regen as you see fit. So it's great for just like turn on the power, run in, do some damage, get out, turn on the mana regen to recover your mana so that you can do it again. So nothing crazy like that, or nothing crazy different. It's still pretty much the exact same deck. I do have dummy wards in the deck. These decks were built before the recent changes to wards, where the ward is now lasting 60 seconds and takes 90 to recharge. I'm not convinced that dummy warding is actually still a thing, but I haven't gone back to reevaluate yet. So anyway, that is my Sereth build. I mean, a couple people around the OmniGamer page. If you're viewing this video, I assume that you're on the OmniGamer page, because that's probably where it's going to get posted. A couple people on this page have played with me as Jungle Sereth, and they have seen that I'm able to take games. You just need to make sure that if you're going to be playing Jungle Sereth, this isn't something that you do in solo queue without thinking about it. Jungle Sereth needs the right kind of team to make use of her abilities. She needs hard CC in the lane, so that she's better able to take advantage of her ganks. And Muriel is never a bad thing, so that she can give Sereth the shields to go into the front line. If you don't have that kind of support going for you, like if you don't have a Decker or a Steel on the team running support, or somebody else that's going to be able to give you the stuns, that you're going to be able to lock somebody down, I would suggest going somebody else. But that said, I mean, I absolutely love playing as Sereth, and I really want to see her develop. So take this deck, try it out in the right circumstances, which is the biggest part, and I guarantee you'll turn people's heads as you show them that Sereth is a totally viable character in the right circumstances. So, with that in mind, we're going to bring the video to a close. Thanks for tuning in. Thanks for stopping by. I hope you enjoyed the video. I hope you enjoyed seeing the deck, and I hope that you're going to go try it out. If you do try it out, let me know how it works out for you. And don't forget to hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, or the dislike button if you don't like me. There's plenty of you who are out there. And make sure that you come back next time to see what would Zig do in Paragon whenever I take this deck back out on the field. I'll see you all then. So here's the gameplay I told you I was going to put in. I had to mute the sound because I happened to be in a game and other people were talking. I don't want that to distract you here. But see, so this is the standard jungle clear that you're looking for whenever you're in the jungle. So you start out with one of those camps, you immediately go to green, or at least this is how I do it. You know, adjust as you see fit. And this actually is not a great clear against the green jungle, but you'll see the timing that I'm talking about. So I took the key there is dodging the auto attacks from the green buff, which I didn't do very well. So I'm actually really low hit points right now. Then you come back here, take this camp out, and the goal here is to get through all of this, come back through, get the single spawns, and then be ready for the river buff at 3 minutes. It's a pretty tight process, especially with Sereth, since you don't have the luxury of a siphon. But you can see the idea that you let the green buff do most of the damage. I probably shouldn't have used Heaven's Fury there, but I was a little worried about my hit point level. You come back over, you get the third minion should spawn on the side camp there, and then this one will spawn one more. You come back to the middle one, get that one more time. That'll put you at level 3. You go down here and you get your river buff. So, and that's the jungle clear.